acknowledging that Alberta is home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit whose footsteps have marked these lands for generations. Those of us joining from Alberta are on traditional lands, referred to as Treaty 6, 7, and 8 territories. All of us are beneficiaries of these peace and friendship treaties, and the Alberta Craft Council is dedicated to ensuring that the spirit of these treaties are honored and respected. And from here, I would like to introduce my lovely colleague, Jill Allen. She is going to introduce the artists.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're really excited to share this great show with you. I hope that many of you will be able to come and see it in person as we're able to have our galleries open at last. It's very thrilling. I just want to tell you a little bit about our two artists this evening, and then I'm going to let them take it away. They're going to talk to us about the exhibition that we have up, Marginalia, and about their experience putting this work together and their ideas behind the work. And I hope that you will have lots of questions for them. We're going to have a question period afterwards. After they give a presentation about the work with some images and a PowerPoint, I'm going to tour around the gallery with my phone, and hopefully that video will help to explain what's happening in the gallery. And if you have any questions or want to see anything, that'll give you an opportunity to do that. All right, so without further ado, Christopher Savage is an artist and designer who grew up in Victoria, British Columbia. He received his diploma in visual arts from Camosun College in 2012 and his bachelor's degree in his bachelor degree in fine arts from the University of Victoria in 2014. Since completing his degree, Christopher has participated in residencies and exhibitions in Portugal, the UK, Victoria, Calgary, Banff, and Medicine Hat. Christopher recently completed his master's in fine arts at the University of Calgary, and he joins us this evening from Calgary. Erin Berry first learned to work with clay from her grandmother, who was also a potter, and she still uses the ceramic hand tools her great-grandfather made for her grandmother's pottery. Erin has a degree in ceramic sculpture with a focus on glazed chemistry from Concordia University in Montreal, and is currently an artist in residence at Harbourfront Centre in Toronto. She has participated in exhibitions throughout North America, and in 2019, an artist residency at Guyaguard International Ceramics Research Centre in Denmark. And Erin is joining us from Harbourfront Centre in Toronto this evening. All right, you guys, I'm going to let you take it away.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you very much, Jill and Saskia and Anna and everybody else from the Alberta Craft Council for making this possible and doing such an incredible job installing the exhibition for us. It looks really, really wonderful. We really hope those that are able in the area can visit it in person, and if not, there's a great little virtual option on the website. So I'm just going to start sharing my screen, and we're going to dive right into the presentation here. Okay, so Marginalia. This exhibit has been unfolding over the course of the past two and a couple of years. And this current iteration shown in the Alberta Craft Council, this is the largest showing of this body of work to date. So yeah, thank you again to the Craft Council for hosting this for us. So this exhibition consists of a series of narratives built through hybridizing of the old and the new, incorporating popular cultural aesthetic references with classical designs. Through the exhibition of drawings and ceramics, we were or have been and are reflecting upon the persistence and strange convergence of mythology and conspiracy theories in contemporary life, in a very kind of playful manner, and we'll get into that a little bit in a bit. So in June of 2019, both Erin and I arrived in Medicine Hat, Alberta to begin month-long residencies at the Medalta Historic Clay District. But in preparation leading up to the residency, we began discussing the possible directions for collaboration. And, looking around at what was happening, something that piqued our attention at the time and had really already begun escalating for a few years was this increasing polarization between ideological viewpoints, and how new theories really, started springing up seemingly overnight. And, it almost happened in kind of like this exponential form where one just sort of snowballed into 4 and into 8 and, just kept increasing pretty rapidly. So now, of course, this isn't something new. Often, throughout history, when, collectively we're facing something threatening and unknown, sort of reason is one of the first faculties that is kind of done away with. So what we really began to notice was the shift from these types of ideas existing more on the peripheries of sort of, the cultural zeitgeist, to them really taking the center stage and starting to dominate the discourse. So terms like post-truth media became, exceedingly normal. And, things like fact checking having to be done on social media sites and, just all over the internet in general. And this was something that was happening before, but it just became that much more transparent in the fact that it was needed to take place. So this problem was and continues to be exacerbated by social media. I've heard social media described in an interview not too long ago by a prominent New York Times columnist as being this sort of open sewer of information, and that because of that, we are sort of collectively losing our cognitive immunity, meaning the ability to discern between fact and fiction. So when I heard that, it really brought to mind a quote by the prolific science fiction writer Ursula K. Le Guin, who stated that the truth is a matter of imagination. So inspiration. So throughout history, societies and cultures have recorded their respective ideologies on the objects they made and the objects that they used in daily life. So to better understand what was and is unfolding around us, we began by looking to the past, particularly to periods where the dominating ideology was robustly represented in the cultural objects that we still have around us today. So we began looking at the way the narratives portrayed, most often mythological or theological, were presented and the types of ceramic forms they were on. So on the screen, you'll see sort of three examples of works that we were looking at when we began talking about the collaborative process and sort of how the aesthetic nature of that was handled as well. So looking back at these objects, we were provided these kind of fragments of insight about what life was like during those periods and how the dominating ideology was presented visually. So the vase became just an incredibly rich metaphor for the human body in relation to how ideology can become really embodied. So that became kind of the main focus for what we wanted to explore. So of course, we've got just on the screen here right now, there's a water jug, from ancient Greece from about 525 BC. And on there it portrays, Hercules fighting this Hydra with some, decorative motifs sort of balancing those out on the top and bottom. And then the central image there is a large jug with sort of a unidentified armorial sort of scene taking place on it. And that sort of brings us forward into the Renaissance period and looking at, more of like these very personalized objects for the individual. And then of course, on the far right, we've got a Dutch Delft charger plate with this sort of very strange kind of lioned man in the center there with a lot of, very symbolic elements both included around him in that sort of central portion, as well as around the edge of the plate, sort of framing used as a framing device. So in addition to looking at a lot of historic ceramic objects and the narratives on them, we also began looking at medieval marginalia. And you may notice that is where the title was derived from. So marginalia are the drawings that surround these main bodies of text in historical objects like illuminated manuscripts or books of hours. So while the texts in these manuscripts and books, they were pretty much not allowed to be altered by the scribes who were making copies of them and writing them out, the images around them offered the scribes the opportunity to have a bit more artistic license. And so now, like looking back at them, a lot of the intentions behind a lot of this marginalia is unclear. We unfortunately cannot ask the artists originally responsible for creating them. So there's sort of wide-ranging debates on sort of their meaning and how they should be read, which range from them just being these decorative illustrations to these kind of bizarre scenes that can definitely be viewed as sort of facetious commentary upon the text. So the interpretation, largely depend upon the reader's understanding. And so this individualization of meaning or truth became, relevant to how we wanted to present the contemporary situation as well. And, in addition, the graphic and very humorous style of these marginalia images is something that offered a lot of inspiration for the visual aesthetics that later became, the name we chose to represent this body of work. So on the screen, I've chose a few examples, tried to keep it, pretty PG-13. There's certainly some very raunchy examples that one can find, but I thought this gave just a brief look at some humorous images that were often found in the margins of these texts. So you've got stuff like sort of the flipping of the world, right? So the animals are kind of the ones that are dominating the narrative, which is sort of evident on the far left with this rabbit riding this very strange creature wielding sort of a stick club above him. And then in the center image, we see this sort of like jester demon type guy taking his kind of angry looking or upset looking winged dragon creature out for a little walk while he's also holding on to this sort of floating leg. And then of course something that's actually surprisingly kind of a common thing found in a lot of these texts is what I've seen referred to online as butt trumpets. So on the far right of the screen, there's an example of this figure with his hand up, and he's playing the trumpet in a quite unusual manner. So moving forward to the contemporary context, we were taking inspiration from the narrative tradition in ceramics and the bizarre and humorous marginalia illustrations, and we began to look around at what was happening in contemporary life. So when we began this project, there was no way we really could have predicted just how pernicious the influence of a lot of these ideas have become. There were definitely signs that certain types of ideologies were moving from the peripheries of the zeitgeist right to that main stage. And of course, other events like the pandemic have really exacerbated and added to that shift in sort of information. So in an increasingly complex and chaotic world, these types of ideas are able to gain so much currency as they often provide answers that appease our proportional bias. So that meaning our tendency to believe that large events must have proportionally large causes. The internet and social media has been fabricating and getting access to these getting access to these types of ideas easier than ever before. And as a result, they're spreading at a much faster rate to a much broader audience. For example, YouTube clips on theories like the lizard people, or say flat Earth, are able to amass millions of views from a global audience without properly referencing, peer-reviewed or credible sources. And when the credibility of such ideas is brought into question, it can often have the inverse effect of what is desired, with the skepticism only reinforcing one's bias. So if the past several years have taught us anything, it's that these types of ideas aren't going away, and they have the potential to make already very serious problems quite worse, and that ignoring them is definitely not a viable solution. So as we began preparing to work on this project, we really envisioned it coming together in an exhibition space where it could be viewed like an exhibition of kind of historical objects in a museum kind of space. So it was able to offer the viewer an opportunity to reflect and kind of think critically about what has become a kind of mythology in contemporary culture, and how these ideas really become embodied on an individual level, and that nobody's necessarily free from these ideas sort of touching upon them, right? We all have our own sort of ideas about certain types of events, and often the commonly espoused narrative doesn't necessarily sort of appease our sensibilities. So just on the screen, these are just some cropped headlines from some fairly recent news stories over the past couple of years, right? Like a lot of UFO documents have been declassified by the CIA, and there's been some really interesting and strange discussions revolving around that. And then, of course, in the center there, like I mentioned with the lizard people, this idea of the reptilian elite, that's kind of gained a lot of currency in the past few years. With you can find YouTube videos sort of delving into the origins and the history of that have millions and millions of views. It's quite astonishing. And then, of course, on the far right of the screen there, some flat earthers were looking to travel to Antarctica to find the edge of the world there. I'm not sure how that ended up for them, but like Netflix, right? They produced a long documentary on flat Earth, right? So that's incredibly accessible to a lot of people, and in a way, it's making those ideas easier to understand. But then there's a flip side of that as well. So getting into our process a little bit more now. That's just sort of a lot of kind of the background information and some of the inspiration that we used in an ongoing basis throughout this project. So back to 2019, sort of just before we met up in Medicine Hat at the Medalta Historic Clay District, I began to make some drawings in preparation, and these really evolved out of conversations and a sharing of resources that went on over text and Instagram between Erin and myself. So the process began with the drawings. They're executed in ballpoint pen and graphite on a found lavender colored notepad. So the drawings we really use them to think about composition, explore some different types of form for the 3D ceramic pieces to come. And, in a kind of like naive and very playful way, we were really starting to build this kind of decorative vernacular that was going to represent the ideas we were looking at. So making reference to the Marginalia illustrations and a lot of mythological themes from historical ceramic references and from elsewhere, we began to map out this hybridization of the old and new, infusing classical forms and pop cultural references to create a narrative space that would draw people in, and in some cases give them direct clues as to what the narratives were about, and in others, allow for multiple readings to take place. So this part of the process, didn't necessarily follow a linear trajectory. I came to Medalta with kind of a stack of drawings that we worked from there, and then as the collaboration unfolded, it was sort of like, we'd work all the way through, get some ceramic pieces done, and then it'd be kind of back to the drawing board, generate some more ideas and build upon what we learned through the previous experiences, and make some adjustments accordingly. So just in relation from the drawings to the ceramics, there are in most cases, but not all, pretty drastic differences between the drawings presented on the ceramic pieces compared to the ones that are on the ceramic objects. And, this was kind of a way to adapt to, translating these from the 2D to the 3D, as well as to highlight how these ideas really change as they move from one media to another. So as people, view them on the internet and then, really start to embody those kinds of ideas, and then, show up at Thanksgiving and start having these very interesting conversations over the dinner table, and how, we're always projecting, some of our own biases through what we're sharing. So at this point, I'm gonna turn the mic over to Erin, and she's going to go through a bit of the process of the development of the ceramic forms and how that progressed.
Perfect. And I guess I'll just give you a thumbs up when I'm ready for the slide change.
Perfect.
Okay, so as Chris said, we started with some drawings and talking about imagery, and from there, at Medalta, we first came together with this project and were able to start collaborating on it. And at the time, we were both working on separate projects at the same time. So I was throwing large pots, and I ended up giving one of these to Chris and just let him start to draw on it. And from there, we started to kind of get a stride with this project. And so here you can see some of the pots that are actually in the exhibition that have been drawn on and glazed that I made in Victoria at my studio there in 2020. And this project has been ongoing since 2019 until just a few months ago. I would say our last pots came out of the kiln in, I think, March or maybe February. So it was down to the wire of the exhibition starting, the original date. And so I was looking at some of the drawings that Chris was making and the forms that he had originally chosen to draw out in his drawings, and then also referencing some historical pots from Japan and China, and also some Greek pots, and kind of how their forms allow for a narrative to work around their pots. So we're good to go on those. Go to the next slide. So here we go. We have an example of Chris's original drawing of the Mothman drawing, and then the pot I threw. And then once I throw it and biscuit, I would ship it to Chris from wherever I was at the time, because I moved around a lot in the last 2 years. And then Chris would draw on the pot, kind of on an agreed theme that we were talking about through Instagram and texting. And then he would cover that drawing in wax resist. And then he would ship it back to me wherever I was. The location sometimes changed. And then I would work on starting to glaze the pots as we went. And so here you can see I've used probably 5 different glazes on this pot, and also some burnt out sponge sculptural pieces that kind of reference the handles and add-ons that you find on amphoras and jugs from Greece. Okay, next slide. And here's another example of the Lizard Queen So that's, you can see throughout our conversations, we did talk a lot about lizard people, and this is an example of a pot that has the story going all the way around. So we have the lizard queen on the front, and then we have her holding the earth in her hand, and it's chained to the earth. So kind of talking about control of ideas and how we get sucked into these kind of ideas. And with the glazing, I was really trying to use bright colors and referencing this kind of social media, bright, cheery vibe that you get on Facebook and Instagram, and ads that pop up on your computer. They're flashy. They want you to look at them. They want to hold your attention just for even a short amount of time, so that they can kind of just plant a little seed in your mind. And so that is kind of where I was going with the color ideas. So we can move to the next one. Okay, so here we have the pots on the right or the left for everyone in bisque form at Chris's place. And the next picture is it back in my studio with the drawing on it in Victoria. And sometimes it would take a while. I'd have to sit with the piece, think about it, look at it from a 360 view, kind of see what colors would go with the theme of the drawing, and then work on not only glazing, but we started working on sculptural aspects as well. So that against meet and greet rules. This is kind of about the effect where an idea takes hold and it changes, and it's about mind melding and how a group of people all over the world can start thinking the same way. And so I was referencing that with the two brains on the top of this jug. And again, you can see the burnt out sponge add-ons, kind of the little devil horns in the situation. Okay. And again, we have some burnt out sponge. So this is from a sculptural technique that I kind of developed when I was at Concordia, playing around with burning materials out. I've done it with wool and other textiles. And I thought the sponge really added to our subject matter in a way, just the way that we've all absorbed these ideas and these conspiracy theories that are touted as if they're fact, kind of as if, I don't know, they're all soaking into our brains, and we now know them just the same way people in the past would have known religious mythology. We now know these current myths of conspiracy theories, and we talk about those over the dinner table, and to good and bad effect sometimes. So this piece actually moves. The little satellite spins around the top of the lid, and we have one of these far out conspiracy theories of I think it might have been the Soviet Union training dolphins and sharks with lasers. Just crazy things that people believe and that you get attached to, and in this delicious looking packaging to really draw you in. Okay, next slide here. Okay, so this is a bit of a look into my glazing techniques and some of the test tiles that I have. I have many, many more test tiles like this. So you can see the colors that I'm working with and the thickness of the glaze. And I'm really attracted to bright colors, I think, in my own work. And I think with this collaboration with Chris, the bright colors add to this candy feeling of our pop culture today, and how it really sucks you in. Just like you want more candy, more sweets, these colors really grab you, especially when they look like something edible. And I love that about glaze and ceramics in general, that it can take on so many different lives. It can really be so many different things. You can make it look like cardboard. You can make it look like paper. It's just an incredible, really incredible medium. And I think the ability to marry these two things, the 2D and the 3D in this project, is really, I think, adding to the depth of the subject matter that we're approaching. Okay, I think we've got more test house slides. Yes, some close-ups of the 3D quality of these glazes. And in the show, you'll see there's drawings by Chris. There's our collaborative pieces. And then there's also some tiles that I've done that are just glazed tiles titled The Primordial Ooze. And it's actually all, sorry for the noise. There's someone coming down the hallway. So the glaze on these tiles is all of the glaze that I was working with for the project. And any leftover glaze that I had, I needed to use it because I was leaving the location I was at. So I thought I really would like to see all these glazes mixed together just in this melting pot of ideas that we are living in now. With the internet, the age of the internet is making ideas spread and mix and kind of become 10 times more than they usually would have. People believe things that seem totally outlandish, and they might think we believe, like, someone else believes things that's something that's totally outlandish. So with this work, we really wanted to take the viewer on a journey through that kind of the zeitgeist, as Chris said, of our current political and social universe as it is. I think we can go to the next one. So here we have kind of a process shot coming to the end of when we were working on these pots together. So the ones on the left are actually ones that I had a layover at one point, and I made it so it was in Calgary, flying from Toronto to Victoria. And I was there for, I think, 24 hours or less. And we stayed up almost that entire time working on these pots and glazing them. And that was like one of maybe 3 times we've been in the same city for this whole process. Otherwise, the pots have been being shipped across North America the whole time. So they've been in many different cities, these pots. And yeah, all these things on the table you'll see in the show as well. And the one with the UFO there, our UFO pot, that's the first pot that we made together at Medalta. So that was the whole culmination, the start of this this whole show. And here we have some shots of the exhibition. So we're really, really grateful for everyone at Alberta Craft for helping us get this show together and putting it up for us, especially in this crazy time. It looks amazing. It really, the work has just done so much justice in this space. And it is amazing seeing it all together, because neither of us have actually had it all like together like this, been able to view it all like this next to each other. And it's really great to see that kind of our thought process for the whole project is really working. You know, it's all speaking to each other. And the way they've set it up is just, it's just amazing. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Yeah, just want to echo what Erin said there. Give a big shout out to the Alberta Craft Council for the installation that they've done. Yeah, really, really incredible. Can't wait to see it in person and have a little walkthrough with Jill in a bit. Just before I stop the screen share there, I just wanted to just spend like a minute here on this last side. So I've kind of put together just a few little resources at the top there on some articles and papers just on how to communicate with people that maybe pretty far down the rabbit hole and really interested in this kind of thing. So yeah, there's some really good articles and resources there for understanding how to do that in a way that's not gonna, cause a lot of anger and belittle people, that kind of thing. And then of course at the bottom, these are just where we sourced some of the images for, the inspiration shots and in the PowerPoint here. Awesome. Okay, I'm gonna stop my screen share here.
Okay, so I'm gonna take us on a little tour of the gallery with my phone. So hopefully the technology won't get the better of me. And while I'm doing that, I'm gonna have the sound turned off. So I'll just ask you, I guess I'm not gonna be able to communicate for questions. So Anna, if you can ask the questions, and Chris and Erin, you can answer. Does that work?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yes, and this is a very good time to remind everybody to please put your questions in the chat. You're probably just as fascinated as I was with Chris's and Erin's presentation, but I'm sure you also have questions. So please pop them in the chat and I will tell Jill.
And meanwhile, I know for a fact that Anna also had some questions as well. So Anna, maybe perhaps you'd like to get the ball rolling.
Oh my God, I had so many questions. And now presentation, I have like a million more. I guess the process that you guys described for me was so interesting because it was very much based on infrastructure, like the infrastructure necessary to fly across spaces, to ship across spaces, to communicate using technology. And I started thinking, and I was like, I mean, to an extent, that's an expression of privilege in the place that we live in. And I just started wondering, like how much that infrastructure facilitates collaboration and, how many people wouldn't have access to do projects like this, how incredibly unique this is. And I was just wondering if you guys wanted to like elaborate on that. I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah.
Do you want to
Go
start
for
on
it,
that?
Chris.
Or- yeah,
Go
I
for it.
can take the lead on that for sure. Yeah, it's been an incredible privilege to be able to work together in this way, as well as to carry it beyond that initial month that we had lined up at Medalta for the residency. And so yeah, we've been pretty cognizant of that, and I don't think it would have been it would have been easier in some ways, but just based on sort of what's unfolded over the past year and a bit, it became a bit more challenging. And yeah, having to use shipping companies and things like that was definitely maybe not the way that we would have liked to carry it out, but was sort of how we had to respond to the situation that was unfolding. So kind of just prior to that, we really tried to make an effort because we both have family in Victoria. So when we were kind of back visiting family there, that was sort of a good opportunity to kind of get together and work on a few pieces. And I happened to be out in Toronto for an art book fair in the fall, late fall of 2019. So we worked on a few pieces during that time. And I think that was kind of the ideal way that we wanted to work together. But yeah, sort of as a result of restrictions and not being able to travel and visit family. Yeah, we had to kind of be adaptable, as well as be sort of smart, I guess, like considerate in the way that we were doing it. So trying to pack multiple pieces into the same box to keep shipping costs down, so it was affordable for the both of us. And yeah, sort of we learned as we went. It was sort of an ongoing thing. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Erin.
Yeah, I guess we're privileged enough to just be able to send the work back and forth. I think being able to do that, and also having spaces to work during this time was big. It was a bit of a balancing act for me because I had places shutting down. So some of our pieces were stuck here for a while when COVID happened, and I ended up getting back just in time to send them out to Alberta. But yeah, it was definitely a learning curve shipping things back and forth, because when we were at Medalta, as Chris said, we definitely wanted to keep working together on this project, and we kind of had an idea that we would do it in the same place through like over time, and it ended up just being with COVID that we were in different cities a lot of the time. So kind of as similar to what our show is talking about, it's in a very digital realm almost. We did this work digitally between each other, sending photos, messages, and so it all kind of happened throughout the virtual, and then we were lucky enough to be able to send the work, and I'm glad I spent the money doing that for sure, because it's created this really special opportunity.
Yeah, I think it makes it so incredibly unique. And the exhibition, I mean, and the work that you produced, I guess I'm gonna keep asking questions because there's none in the chat just yet. But I was thinking about it also in the context of, like the inability to like discern cognitively that Chris was talking about during his presentation, and how that's very much influenced by the predominance of social media and the speed with which communication moves these days, and how it's a double-edged sword, right? Like on the one hand, it really facilitates things, and on the other hand, it really difficults everything else. So yeah, did you experience any of that during the process?
Yeah. There was actually, I mean, throughout the last few years, with everything that was going on in the US, there were new conspiracy theories kind of popping up that would take hold so fast, in a way that I don't think anyone had really seen before. And that definitely kept the work interesting in a way that we would be sending those things back and forth and being like, oh my God, do you see this thing that's happening now? We should make a pod about that, or kind of developing ideas that way. Yeah, do you want to say anything about that, Chris?
Yeah, definitely resonate with your comment there about it being a double-edged sword, right? Because in a lot of ways, it allowed us to communicate across across the country, and share these types of ideas and talk about them, and talk about the possibility of introducing them into the series. But then at the same time, it allows these ideas to just spread so quickly in a way that we were able to kind of witness some of the negative effects of how that can come about from it, on January 6th, right down in the US at the Capitol building there. So yeah, it's totally a double-edged sword, and that was something that we definitely tried to stay cognizant of throughout the process, and sort of definitely being a little bit selective on sort of which ideas we wanted to take on and talk about.
Yeah, and I think that also kind of being cognizant of the climate, the social and political climate, the way we approached the visual aspect of the project. I was trying to I think we were both trying to make it approachable in a way that brought people in and was visually pleasing, so that conversations can start without hackles being raised all of a sudden, right away, and people being able to kind of have a level conversation or take things in, approaching this subject matter with humor. which is something I think Chris did really well and is doing really well in his illustrations. Yeah.
I totally agree. Thank you. I think you guys are doing an amazing job. Roland has a question, so I am going to give the floor to her.
Roland is my husband. I'm Susanna, but he's the one that set up the
Susanna,
Zoom.
so sorry.
A couple of things, and I might have missed it when you were talking about it. Did you both go to Medalta knowing this is what you wanted to work on?
Yeah, I think it was the June residency at Medalta, and when Chris and I found out that we were both doing the June residency, we definitely talked about working on something together. So I think we both went with separate projects that we'd applied with.
Yeah.
But because we were there at the same time with that incredible space that Medalta is, and it is really conducive to collaboration. So we just took the opportunity to work on something that we've been talking about for months beforehand. So yeah. So I think yes and no. We planned on doing something. We didn't quite know what it was going to be. I think, yeah, that's.
I had an opportunity to walk through the show when I was up in Edmonton this past week.
Oh, fantastic.
And it's incredible. And it's so, each of the pieces feels so multi-layered, even more layered than I think what you've talked about here tonight. They're just like, there's just so much, right? I felt a little bit overwhelmed, like even just trying to look at them all. And I really appreciate just hearing some of the background there. But then I was wondering, can I ask a technical question? You're talking about burning out the sponge. Can you tell me what that means?
So let's see if I have a sponge I can show you.
Erin is the burnout sponge expert, by the way. This is
well, I was amazed at what I saw there.
It's unbelievable. It's really unbelievable.
Okay, well, I'll just show you like a normal sponge that we have in the studio. I just have on my desk. I do have some burnt out ones in the other room I could go grab. So pretty much I just take a normal sponge. I have some specific sponges that I like for the texture, you know, they're all different. So yeah, I either take a kind of a high fire glaze, something that's closer to because part of my glaze experimentation when I was at Concordia and then still continuing now is kind of working in that zone between glaze and clay, and how far can you take a glaze before it becomes a clay, and vice versa. And also that's determined by temperature and things like that. So working with sponges, I think it started with just, I wiped up some slip with a sponge and then I let it dry on my desk, and I thought, you know what? That sponge is full of clay. I wonder what would happen if I fired it. So I think I was at Concordia at the time. And so I ended up firing the sponge, and it looked just like a sponge after I got it out of the kiln. So it's just really saturated with either porcelain slip or a glaze. Like you could probably soak something in a matte glaze that doesn't melt too much, that doesn't get glossy, and you get the texture still. Yeah, you just have to imagine everything that's fiber is going to go away. So as long as the fiber is coated in ceramic material, it'll stick around. So you could burn out a wool sweater if you wanted, something with a loose weave.
Yeah.
Thin fabric doesn't work great because the fibers don't absorb it as much, but I could go on about this forever.
Oh, I love it. Well, I've done a little bit of playing with paper clay. And
yes.
That was kind of, but I couldn't figure out what exactly you'd done there. So thank you for explaining a bit more about that. Very exciting.
I love it. Technical questions, bring them on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I have a question or a comment. I don't know how much of a question is actually in it because it's not fully formed in my brain yet. But one of the things that has, as you've been talking about the work and the inspirations for the work, and then also just all the different materials and formats for the work, the 2-dimensional, the 3-dimensional, and how that information is distorted between those two modes. And then also, the beautiful old illuminated transcripts and Chris's drawings on the lined paper that's so familiar and so easy to relate to. And all the shipping back and forth has got me thinking about all these different ways of communicating and expressing ideas, visually as imagery, and also with words, and the idea of, people having epistolary relationships where they're writing back and forth to each other, and that the way that you guys have been shipping your work back and forth and trying to meet up and communicate that way. And I just think it's really provides a richness for the exhibit. There's so many ways to relate to it, and so many different angles to relate to it from. And I don't know, I mean, was that to me seems like something that might have just sort of developed organically, but was that something you had in mind when you first decided to do something collaboratively, or did it just sort of spring naturally from the material, or do you have any comments?
No, I think that's a great question, comment, and really does talk to or speak to sort of how this sort of evolved organically over the course of the time we were working on it together. And just like these pots are probably more well-traveled than we are in a lot of ways, and definitely speak to sort of how these ideas are embodied by the individual, and they're transported to wherever that individual may find themselves. And I think like starting out, we weren't quite sure how it was going to carry forward after we left Medalta, but we definitely knew it was something that we wanted to keep working on. So that part definitely evolved very organically. Like I was saying earlier, we were lucky enough to be able to be adaptable to the outside situations that were evolving around the time that we were working together.
Yeah, we've kind of become ceramic pen pals in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that, because I like that the process is so personal and intimate, and then the material that you're dealing with is so like worldwide news, tabloid kind of.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a really interesting mixture.
Yeah, thank you. And we've certainly sort of interjected our own sort of subjective sort of tendencies into it as well. So both in the drawings and the pots and Erin's primordial ooze tabs, they definitely retain a lot of that the sort of sensibilities that we have just already. And it's been nice to sort of bring that together and share that across time and space with one another as well.
Well,
and also, oh, sorry, go for it.
Oh, you go ahead. I was just going to say another comment, but
okay. I was just going to say it's been really great working with Chris, because in my practice, I've been doing a lot more kind of organic sculptures and things like that, and fewer pots. And I think it's been a way to kind of expand and develop both of our practices through this collaboration, through having someone to talk to about ideas, and while still allowing each other to have our own voice shine through in this work. And that's worked really organically throughout this whole thing, just having someone to bounce ideas off of and support. And it's been great.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Just to kind of echo a little bit of that as well. After this project, I've, sort of moved, ceramics has really become sort of a major part of my artistic practice. And that certainly a big part of that was this collaboration here. And, while we're talking about, letting our own voices come through, and that's not to say that we necessarily agree on everything, right? Like, I know, for instance, that Erin was always concerned about not letting the glazes
Oh, yeah.
drip down onto the drawings and stuff like that. And she'd send a photo and be like, "I'm so sorry, the glaze kind of dripped over it."
Just
And
went right over top.
yeah, and that would often become my favorite part of that piece, just the way that our two distinctive voices started to kind of overlap and work together in those interesting ways. It just became so exciting, and I think has opened up a lot of new directions for both of us.
Yes, definitely.
Do you think that the collaborative back and forth pen pal work will continue, or?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I don't know if this kind of body of work is done yet. I think it's still in progress. I mean, the conspiracy theories are still flowing, so they're still developing. There's lots of juicy material that we can use still. So
Oh, definitely. Way more than we could have covered in even in this 2-year period. They just kept coming up at such a consistent rate. If the internet kind of slows down a little bit, that would be nice, so we can kind of catch up on some of the stuff in the past year. But yeah, I think we'll be carrying forward with this as well.
Yeah, and I think I've had the opportunity to get a 3D printer, ceramic 3D printer, and so I've been doing work with that, and I can just show you. I've got some right behind the computer here, but just some work that I think, talking about technology and the development of ideas and how that's translated through the digital world. I do think that some of these pots will definitely be included in the body of work, and having drawings on those, I think, will only make them more interesting, and kind of that kind of layering of ideas and material in this work. Yeah, because now I can sculpt things on the computer, and the options are endless.
Pandora's box has been opened.
Glaze and 3D printing. It's just woo!
I wonder if you could print out forms to absorb the slip and stuff like that, and burn them out. Would that work, or is it not porous enough?
No, it's clay. So it's yeah, it's all clay already. So yeah, I've got some I'm just sitting in my studio. So this is something that I bisqued already, that I'm still developing my sculpting skills, but it's kind of a combo of 3D printed, some fibers inspiration in there. Yeah, I think there's lots of opportunities for more collaboration in the future, for sure.
Good news.
Yes.
I have some questions/comments. So we had the most enlightening conversation with Chris and Erin last Friday ahead of today's talk. And there were so many nuggets of wisdom that when Anna, Jill, and I got off the call, we were just vibrating with excitement for tonight. So I just want to bring back a few of those little bits. One of them was, Erin, I thought you spoke of when you, that you generally stayed with white and with white ceramics. And then I love the comment that you made that we get attached to colors and patterns, just like we get attached to ideologies, which I thought was very, you said it. Okay, I don't have to carry on that.
No, I mean, yeah, go for it. Sorry.
Well, the other one is kind of an aside, but so Jill and I had the great pleasure of installing this exhibition. And when we got some of the smaller pieces, it just, to me, it was very natural to make like a dinner tableau, like a serving tableau. So you probably saw that, those plinths, the few plinths that were together. And Chris, you just had the great comment about, talks around the dinner table, that it sort of seemed natural to have those things like that, even though we didn't have a discussion about install at all. But I love the anyway, if you remember that comment, if you want to elaborate on that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up, Saskia. That was something that I noticed like right away as soon as you were walking through and showed that little corner, and how they have it sort of displayed like it would be in kind of a domestic setting, right? And that is one of the sort of a space that a lot of these ideas can become shared, right? And either with agreement, or it can ruin some otherwise wonderful family dinners kind of thing. So that was actually something that we had talked about a little bit beforehand, and in sort of generating ideas for how to display the work, and sort of staging this kind of this sort of domestic like table, like dinner table, with objects on it. We thought was an interesting way to present it and show how it's not just this sort of singular idea, but it's constantly evolving through the discourse and how it's shared. So that it just like blew my mind when I saw that it was set up that way already. We were on the same wavelength there.
I'm so excited for that. Yes, yeah, it feels really good. I want to encourage everyone, if there's no further questions, I'm not seeing anything in the chat. We want to know what's next for Christopher and Erin.
Well, as we said, I think definitely more collaboration. I think this work has a lot of room to evolve still. And then I guess individually, I'm in Toronto now. I'm at Harbourfront, and working on a lot of 3D printed stuff, and that's slowly developing as I become more versed with the digital technology, which is a new thing for me. I'm used to working with my hands. So I'm currently developing a whole new body of work as well in tandem with this. Mm-hmm.
That's fantastic. We're so excited. And next one, where can we find you? The social media handles, Instagram, etc. For those, of course, everyone just follow Alberta Craft Council, Instagram, Facebook, and our website, and we'll let you know all the things. But in the meantime, if you're impatient, where can we find you?
Yeah, why don't you go, Chris?
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, we both have sort of our own Instagrams, and we're always sharing a lot of this work across both accounts. So you can find myself on Instagram at CCM Savage, and I believe Erin's is at
EE Berry.
EE Berry. Yeah.
Yeah. Or Erin Berry Ceramics if you want cups and bowls and some 3D printed stuff there too. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Well, I want to thank everyone who came tonight to attend this workshop. Christopher Savage and Erin Berry, thank you so much for making such incredible work, thought-provoking, luscious, delicious, 3D. I really encourage edible. It's so edible. I love it. So I really encourage everyone, if you are in Edmonton, please come by. The exhibition is going on until August 21st in Edmonton, so you have a little bit of time. We give you a month and a bit to get there. And meanwhile, I also just want to say, and also thanks to my colleagues Jill Allen and Anna Ries for doing this as well today. And I'd like to mention what else we have going on, if we may, for a moment. So we have Marginalia, as mentioned at the top of the talk. It's online and in person, obviously in Edmonton, downtown, free parking on the west side of the building. It's a unicorn in Edmonton, so just take it. And then we also have Threading Black, which was the previous Discovery Gala exhibition in Edmonton. And it's going to be opening July 17th until August 28th in Calgary. It's an exceptional exhibition as well. And Shamira, Eva, and Simone, curator and artist involved, did an amazing Monday meetup with us as well. It's also online. I do encourage you to talk just like this, lots of thought-provoking content there. And then we have Crafted NWT. So our first collaboration with Northwest Territories is on until the end of July in Edmonton. And then following that is going to be, we are so excited, Kitsch. Craft so good, it's bad. And it is going to run concurrently 1 week with Marginalia. So I really hope that everyone will come in and check it out, because it is going to be epic. We are going to go all out for this exhibition in our feature gallery. So that's going to open August 14th. So between August 14th and 21st, please come down and see the greatness.